So hello from Green-Mopeds in London. So today we're doing a review of the Segways. There are 4 models of the E series that are available, but only 3 are available in the UK, and these are all of them. So this is the E110, this is the E125, and this is the flagship E300. Primarily we're going to focus on the E300, but we'll reference the other 2, and hopefully that will help you make an informed decision. So let's get to it. Okay, so Segway probably need no introduction. They do, or did, the personal electric transport, as they called it, which was the 2-wheeler platform that you leant forward on to move forward and leant back on to go backwards. You see them on sort of tours around cities and things like that. No longer available. They now do kick scooters, moped scooters, and these are 3 of the 4 that are available. I can understand why we don't get the 4th option. It's too close to the one in the middle, which we'll come to in a minute. But they also have the B series, which is up there. But we're just going to focus on these. Okay, so left to right, we've got the E110, in the middle E125, and the flagship E300. As I've said before, the naming convention is a little bit unusual because the 2 in the middle are 28 mile an hour 50cc equivalents. So as to why they've given them an E110 and an E125 naming convention, I'm not too sure about that. And the E300 is a 125cc license. So again, not too sure why they've given it that naming convention, but that's by the by. As you can see, what they have done, which is sort of a little bit like New have done, but they've taken it to a more sort of logical extreme, is to have them all look the same. Okay, so there are obviously differences, but from a front nose perspective, they are all the same. They all have 12-inch wheels, which in some respects is one of the things to consider, I guess, when you are looking at these sorts of bikes. Some people do not like 12-inch wheels or smaller wheels, let's say. And as I've said on the other review, if I were to change one thing about this bike, I would probably give it at least 14-inch wheels, but obviously that's their choice. Okay, so if we start on the little one, so this is a 48-volt base system, single battery. Okay, then in the middle, the 125 is also a 48-volt system, but 2 batteries, and then you've got the E300, which is 74-volt. So 74 volt, in terms of the bikes that we do, the biggest in that sort of spec is 72 volt. So what voltage gives you is acceleration, takeoff. And this is, the E300 is by far the one with the most acceleration that we do. Okay, so if getting away from the lights is what you're into, then the E300 certainly will help you with that. But the other 2, the E110 is 48 volt 30 amp hour battery. Okay, so that's 1.4 kilowatt hours. The one in the middle is 48 60 volt battery, but 2 of them. And then you've got the E300, which is 74 by 27, which is nearly 2 kilowatt hours per battery. But interestingly on that one, you can have 3 batteries if you choose. It comes with 2 by default, but you do have an option for the 3rd, okay? But just going around the bike a bit more. So they're all 1.86 meters long. As you can see, consistent along the back as well. Interestingly, one of the things to highlight about the first 2, the E110 and the E125S, is that the brown seat is on the E125 and the black seat is on the E110. They do not come with either, but of course you could, if you really wanted to, buy the black seats and put it on the E125 if you really wanted to. Okay, so one of the things that is also good about these bikes is storage. Okay, so you can get into the seat by double clicking on the green button. What you do notice with these bikes is they are quite talkative. Lots of beeps going on. This is actually the bag of bits that you get, which is a charger, second key, little toolkit. But as you can see in here, there is a good amount of storage. Okay, so they are trying to cover a lot of ground with these bikes. Okay, so again, on this one, it's the same because it's basically the same bike, but with the different internals. But on the E300, you actually have even more storage. Okay, so I didn't actually appreciate this until just recently. So as you can see, part of the reason for the extra storage is that this is where the third battery would go. Okay, so if you wanted it. So the cabling would come out through here, the third battery would go in here, and then you would get another 2 kilowatt hours of capacity, which basically means 6 kilowatt hours. So 6 kilowatt hours, there is no other bike that gives you 6 kilowatt hours that we do, unless I'm mistaken. The Silence SO1 over there, that's 5.6. So, as I've said on the other review, my view on what Segway have done is they've sort of looked at a lot of these other bikes and said, right, we're just going to make it better in various aspects. Okay, so battery capacity is one of them. So here you go, underneath there's 2 that slide to the back, and same on the E125, and then 1 on the E110. I will say that if there's one other niggle I have with these bikes is how easy it is or not to get the batteries out. They are a little bit fiddly, I would say. So they obviously have a charging option down here, which you can charge the batteries through the bike, but getting them out is not impossible, obviously, but it's a little bit fiddly. So just something to be aware of, okay? So here you see you've got your 2 batteries. They are about 13 kilos each. On the other 2, they are about 11. Okay, and as I said, 2 kilowatt hours per battery on the E300. And obviously you're taking a lot more power. Okay, so from the E110, you've got a maximum power of 1.5 kilowatts. Okay, that's about 2 horsepower. Okay, that is on the low end. That's maximum power, remember. That's not continuous or whatever. That is a little bit low compared to things like an NIU NQI Sport, which would be essentially a competitor to this bike. On the E125S, you've got 3 kilowatts. These are all powered by QS hub motors, which I'll show you in a sec. And on the E300, though, you have 10 kilowatts max horsepower. Sorry, kilowatts, which is, we're getting on to 12 horsepower. Okay, so that is pretty powerful. I mean, as I said, this is more powerful than any other moped we do. If you compare it to, for example, an Evo, okay, so like that one over there, that is 6.2 kilowatts max. If you compare it to even the Silence at the back, that's 9 kilowatts max. Okay, so they've really sort of gone to town in making this, you know, a leading product. And if the others are taking note, then this, as I've said, is sort of now the bike to beat. Okay, in terms of lots of things. Storage, okay, more storage on the Silence SO1. But this is more powerful and faster, goes 65 miles an hour, more range if you add the third battery than any of the other bikes that we do. So really something that the others should be thinking about. Anyway, just to go around a little bit more, as you can see, ABS. So again, what they seem to have done is think about, well, what do we need to make it better than the others? None of the others have ABS. None of the 3 main competitors, which is an SO1, an Evo, and an EK3. So they've thought about that. So you don't get that on the other 2, but you do get something called electronic stability control. Okay. Right. So going around to the actual dash. So consistent. They're all the same. Very simple. Nothing too complicated on the dash layout. As I showed you, double pressing that gives you access to opening the seat and also to enable it in ready. They've got quite a few sensors on this bike. So for example, you see this red, it stops the bike from moving properly. And that's because it's got a sensor on the seat. So it knows that I'm not sitting on it, and therefore it won't go. Okay, so on other bikes, you can put it into ready and just spin the wheels. But on this one, because they put the sensor in the seat, it's not going to happen unless you sit on it, and that's what this red means. Around here, these change as and when you're doing certain things. So on this bike, as you saw in the ride review, if you go into like full maximum throttle, it flashes purple around it. If you're doing regen, it goes green. Okay, so it's to give you sort of visual clues. Okay, that's just simply laid out. This one needs a firmware update, which we will do. Obviously your battery levels, modes, which you get to through here. See lots of feedback going on. You've got your indicators here. Okay, lights, cruise control, etc. Okay, now one of the things about this bike is actually the app. So if you were to look in the app, there is an awful lot of things you can do. So for example, you can have automatic turn off of indicators, which up until this point was only what NIU offered. Okay, you can configure it so that it will automatically turn itself off if you walk away. Okay, you can have automatic steering lock, although that might not be a feature on this one, but it is certainly a feature on these two. So when you turn the bike off, it automatically locks the steering lock, which is an Evo. That's what the Evos do. You can get it to do brake and throttle together. So brake and throttle together is what CBT schools, particularly when you're learning your first CBT, they want you to learn how to do brake and throttle together. Okay, you can configure that on this bike. Okay, so brake and throttle together is about a control thing, but lots of people don't want to have brake and throttle because they want to literally just hold it on the throttle. One of the other features that this bike has is something called hill start. So it will hold you on a hill, as in it will stop you from rolling backwards, which is a configurable thing. And if you try and actually push it, which I showed you on the ride review, it will not go backwards. So it's a bit like having, you know, a brake and clutch in a car, okay, but it will actually hold you on the hill, okay? It's got GPS, it's got an alarm, as you would expect, etc., etc. And most of these features are available on all of these bikes, okay? The hill start isn't, but on this one it is. But there are things like the seat sensor is available on these other two, etc., etc. Okay, and GPS is firmware updates over the air, which is again a feature of an NIU that's available too. Okay, so just going on around the dash, so there's a little cubby hole down here. There's a USB port in here. You don't need the key. You can start it through the app, or you can start it through the fob. Okay, so you don't have to have the key in the bike if you don't want to. And then on the other two, it's basically the same layout. As I showed you, you get to the battery underneath here. You notice also, just a little bit of a interesting thing, E110 black, E125 chrome and brown, and chrome again. Okay, so another little difference between the two. Okay, so in terms of range, which everyone asks about. So quoted range depends on obviously which bike you're looking at, but if you're looking at quoted range for the E110, you're looking at about 45 miles. On the E125, because remember you have got twice the power, you do have a lot more battery capacity, but the quoted range is 50. I think that's a little bit low, to be honest. And then on the E300, it's up to 70, but that would be with the 3 batteries, if you chose to do it. The 3 batteries, the third battery option is another £850, but we'll come on to price in a second, okay? In terms of colours, in case you're interested in colours, there's 5 colours on the E110 at the end. There's a red, some gloss colours, and a matte grey, I think it is. On the E125, there's 4 colours, including that nice blue, and on the E300, any colour as long as it's black. Okay, so only black available at the moment. All right, and I guess lastly, how much are they? So 2.5 for the E110. 3,150 for the E125 with the 2 batteries, but 4,000 for the E300. Now, 4,000 is a bit more now than things like the Evo and the EK3 because they have reduced their prices. But 4,000 and 4,850 for the 3 battery option is quite a good price, especially if you compared it to something like a Silence SO1. Okay, so £4,000 will give you the 2 battery E300, 65 mile an hour. They are on the grant, so that is after the grant. So you're still getting your 2-year warranty on the bike and the 3-year warranty on the batteries. Okay, and essentially that's probably all I need to tell you. Hopefully you found that useful. Obviously you're more than welcome for a test ride. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, green-mopeds.com, and thanks very much.